Hello, welcome to the Horus Heresy. I'm your host, Rob. I'm joined by the chat, obviously. Thank you for watching my third video on the Horus Heresy. I hope you've enjoyed them so far. So the thing that we're going to be going through today is the preview of the advanced rules characteristics in the Horus Heresy. There was this really wonderful moment from the first video where Emma pointed out on my blue sky that, you know, when I said there's this many stats, this is going to put people off. I think that is probably accurate. But if you are here, I'm assuming, like me, you want to learn. And I am definitely in that learning process. Many of us will be. So I'm just going to deep dive kind of like what they've said in this article and what I think about it. And, you know, have a conversation around having stat lines that are 14 stats long. That seems insane. Okay, so new edition of the Horus Heresy brings up with a number of changes to the rules. There are additions, removals, and rethinks, but the important thing to note is it's still the same game. Now, they say this a lot when they do any of their games. It's just a bit of marketing bump, because while they add new stuff to try to bring new people in, they always don't want to get rid of the old people. So they're like, it's completely the same. You're like, is it? They're like, no, it's actually very different. But they just do that anyway. Right, so the first thing we're going to look at is advanced characteristics. Every unit of Warhammer, the Horus Heresy, now has an expanded stat line, which includes 3 new characteristics: cool, willpower, and intelligence, or CL, WP, and IN. So cool, willpower, intelligence. And obviously fans of like the Necromunda will have seen these stats before. It's no surprise that Specialist Design Studios, which does incorporate also the Necromunda team, and the Horus Heresy probably work fairly close together. Like the sci-fi people are pretty close with each other. Makes sense. These 4 stats are known as advanced characteristics, and they deal with mental aptitude, whether that's bravery or sensitivity to the Empyrean. And obviously having a 1,000 Sun Psyker there makes sense. This is not the first time these 4 stats have appeared together in a Warhammer game. Those especially Long in the Fang may remember that they featured in Rogue Trader, the very first edition of Warhammer 40,000. And then those stats fell out of use in the next edition, but they were revisited in Necromunda and revamped in 2017. Well, it's always nice to revisit the classics. Nostalgia is not the driving factor for their return to the Age of Darkness. It's all about bringing more nuance and narrative to the game. Where previous leadership represented every facet of a character's mental fortitude, you can have real specialists bringing in their own strengths and weaknesses to an army. Distinguishing between these traits allows much more differentiation between the units in a setting where mythic deeds and story champions are at the heart of everything that's crucial. Now, again, seeing this very early was one of the things that was actually, for me, really impactful in wanting me to like learn more about the Horus Heresy. I've been talking a lot on all of my channels, like Age of Sigmar channel, Squarebase channel, or while I live stream, about what a game is really trying to do, or more importantly, what a war game is going to try to do. It's a really good conversation that maybe 40k and Age of Sigmar aren't necessarily, if they are a war game, they're not really trying to be representative of like real world mechanics, or not even real world mechanics. Obviously that's silly, right? Sci-fi and fantasy. A lot of the conversation that I've been having is around how is a game trying to best exemplify the narrative? Like, and I don't mean like let you tell a story. I mean, tell a story using the rules of how a unit works and operates and feels and responds. I want the piece that I have on the board to feel like not just a Space Marine, but individually a Death Guard Space Marine, maybe a Death Guard Space Marine from a certain company, and that has maybe its own history and story as well. Those role play, narrative elements, some people really do call narrative play, but I think actually the rules should be trying to, I did have a term for it the other day, and I can't remember what term I came up with, but it's like narrative expression through rules writing. And I'm really excited about this, although obviously it's a huge dump of information, but it allows you to be more expansive with how you, rules expression, I think that was what I came up with. Rules expression, I think was the kind of term that I liked. The rules expression of the narrative, or narrative rules expression. And I think that's really positive, especially in a game I intend to play in a very crunchy, mechanical way, because it allows broader choices. But let's dive more into it. But this made me very happy when I first saw it. So how do advanced characteristics work in a game? Leadership, intelligence, cool, and willpower are all using characteristic checks. When called upon to make a check, players roll 2 dice, aiming for equal or under the unit's characteristic. So a high number is better than a low number, either to complete an action or avoid a penalty, which is exactly how leadership works at the moment. And it's right, breaking leadership out while keeping leadership, but breaking it out into other stats allows you to be much more clever. Like in the old world, just this week, they've just done an FAQ where they made an Empire General now, instead of be leadership 9, be leadership 10, which is the highest leadership it can be. And the reason for that is generally it was considered that the rest of the army really needed that kind of leadership bonus for how it needed to work, because it was meant to stand there. But actually, does it make sense that an Empire General is leadership 10, or is like a Vampire leadership 10, or actually is like a Vampire very oppressive and a Empire General very like inspiring? And so I think the expansion is really good. We're called upon, anyway, high number, and what's nice is it's not a different way to check each one. It's just you roll 2d6 and you need to roll equal or below. Easy. Each advanced characteristic interacts with a different part of the game. Leadership shows how receptive your troops are to following orders and is used to gauge panic and rallying units. Cool shows how calm your troops are under pressure and incoming fire, and is used to avoid debuffs such as penalties from suppressive fire, which is another article we'll cover in a bit. Willpower is more metaphysical stat, used primarily for manifesting or resisting psychic powers. High willpower makes powers more likely to work, and you'll take less damage from perils of the warp. I also like the idea that you could have a high willpower stat which helps you with resistance as well. I think that's very fun. Intelligence is used when interacting with technology. This could mean a tech marine trying to fix a vehicle, or a specialist using an auger to track enemy units. This is also good as well, because it means that you couldn't have literally, let's say you have an item that gives you a really good bonus in the game, right? And you can put it on a vehicle, a chassis. And by chassis and vehicle, I'm not talking about an actual vehicle in the game. I'm talking about a miniature model, because they're really frames, right? They've got a toughness, a wound value, an armor value. So if you can just take the item and it works really well on the best melee character, then that's what you'll do. But actually, if that item requires you to have a very specific high stat in one thing, and your melee character doesn't have that stat, but your tech marine does have that stat, that's a nice way to be able to semi-balance it. So it's not just always best melee character with best item, right? So making it so that they're separated out is really positive. Okay, tests are taken against the lowest characteristic in a unit, with two key exceptions. Models that have the sergeant rule can always test on behalf of their unit, while commanders who join units may also lend their stats to any check, an important role for middleweight characters. That's nice. I quite like that. I mean, the term middleweight characters also produces a lot of nuance straight away. There's the idea that there is a heavyweight character. Primarch's probably the heaviest. Maybe they're super heavy. We don't know if it's light. In the rules writing department, they've done light, middle, and heavy. Or maybe they've gone very light, medium, heavy, ultra heavy, right? As a concept. And that's good, because differentiating, again, unit roles makes broader list writing possible, which is very, very positive. So here you can see a Legionnaire. You can see that their leadership, cool, willpower, and intelligence are 7, whereas the sergeant only gets a bump to its leadership. So that's all you're really getting from the sergeant in the unit, which makes sense and keeps that narratively themed. As you see, a basic Space Marine is respectable advanced characteristic mix, passing most of the tests most of the time. Roll 7 or less on 2 dice. A sergeant bolsters. I think actually the stats on 2d6, the average is 7. So 7 or below, but I don't think it makes you very reliable. I don't think it is kind of close to the 50-50 mark. So that's quite interesting on your basic Marine. But again, we're playing the Horus Heresy. We're not playing 40k. In 40k, a Marine is like an angel of death, and is definitely. It's not that they're stronger than they were in the Horus Heresy, although I'm not really sure what the conversation around Primaris Marines versus regular Marines is. I guess they are stronger. Who knows? But in this, Marines, there's hordes of Marines and they get mowed down, right? You take 40, 60 Marines and they get mullered. So they are kind of your basic line troops. Okay. So, but then we go look at a Centurion. So all those stats are up. Cool, willpower, intelligence is up. It's got a 2-up armor save and a 5-up invuln save. That's crazy. That's cool. Still toughness 4 and only got 3 wounds. Leadership is 9. So that's great as well. That's a pretty high stat. Cool, willpower, intelligence 8. Centurion, on the other hand, is better passing all these tests. Also, I guess we should talk about the fact that characters joining units is also very cool. If you are coming from another game system, maybe you are playing a game where a character can join a unit. That's pretty spicy. And then which characters join which units is also fun as well. Are the units they join just going to be like ablative wounds? Are you going to be able to really improve what a unit does? And will you have specialists for each unit? Can you make a combat unit that has a more melee-centered character that gives them bonuses, to make them better in combat? Well, that's pretty cool, especially when you start talking about Legion-specific stuff. That's very, very interesting. Other specialists might have less even spread of stats. The Master of Signals has no better willpower or core than a basic Legionnaire, for instance, but impressive intelligence 10 demonstrates the mastery of logistics. There are Primarchs who score very high across all the advanced characteristics. So obviously on a 2d6, leadership 12, cool 10, willpower 10, intelligence 10, that's incredibly tough on Vulcan, my man, my goat, the goat, yeah, the best of all boys, okay? And why? Because he fights dragons. I did this, I talked about this on the Jug Show the other day. There's no way that Vulcan isn't the best one. In the comments, please let me know what your thoughts are. But he fights dragons. He just goes toe-to-toe. That's what he does. Sorry, that's just Vulcan the Dragon Hunter is what he should have called him. Okay. Advanced characteristics don't stop at 10. Most Primarchs have 12 leadership and a cool 10, as well as willpower and initiative. Unless these are some modifiers in play, they will always pass panic and rally checks and can reliably pass most others, which is good, obviously. Like, that's really what you want. Although I'm assuming there is going to be modifiers in the game. I'd expect a bunch of leadership debuffs from some of our more spooky edgelord legions. We're covered in bats. We're scary. We're lightning and bats. Okay. All right. Calm down, lads. We're lightning and bats. Anyway, yeah. So they'll probably lower leadership values and do things. And you probably can lower, Vulcan's leadership down by apparently having some spooky bats lying around. Not all Primarchs are equal. Magnus has willpower 11, which makes sense, while Horus Ascended has a whopping 14 leadership. Even the most crippling modifiers, he would never run from the fight. So there you go. You can have modifiers down, which is interesting. Okay, then we've got a tech thrall. And this is where I really, obviously with Primarchs, you're really talking about like the zenith of the game. But when you're talking about tech thralls, this is the width of the game that I'm really hoping plays out when we get the actual rules and we get the army books, which I'll be covering when they do all come out. For me, this is perfect. As someone who also owns a ton of tech thralls, this is perfect. Their intelligence is 4, but their cool is 12. Advanced characteristics become less well-rounded. A tech thrall has a feeble mind, but they will always get on with the job of walking mindlessly into the most brutal war zone, not caring at all when their fellow is taken out by precise sniper fire. So their cool being 12 is fantastic, right? Because again, this is what I really like. I like that you do have that expressiveness in the rules. I do need to come up with a term with it. Let me know in the comments if there's a term that you think would be better. But then the Ogrin, which is funny. This is literally an undead robot zombie. That's important to remember. A tech thrall is an undead robot zombie. But a Charonite Ogrin is intelligence 2. He's literally half as smart as an undead robot zombie, but an Ogrin, my boys, my absolute besties, love the Ogrins. T5, 4 wounds, leadership 12, cool of 10, but their intelligence is 2, is heartbreaking. Charonite Ogrins have the lowest, and again, this is Games Workshop's classic. Listen, I love a small short king. Shout out to all the short kings watching the video. Leave some comments if you're in the chat and you're a short king. Love you, right? Short kings, short queens. But I feel like this is some tall person bias here, right? Or big person bias, right? Right, just because you're a beefy lad, you're not smart. That's rude. Is anything a 1? I actually don't know if anything's a 1. That would be, we should look that up. Well, I mean, we don't know. We haven't seen all of the rules, right? And obviously when the rule book comes out, also accompanying that is also going to be several other tomes of books, which I will do all of the coverage on. So it's going to be a very exciting time when it does all launch. So we'll go into it. Anyway, Ogrins have the lowest intelligence in the game, so let's hope your battle plan does not require them to operate any complex mechanisms or tie a shoelace. But their drug-fueled fury, they're surprisingly dependable. Good at taking simple orders, are very likely to bolt the first sign of trouble. This is our first look at the new rules. We're back this week, etc., etc. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is we know later on that there's going to be objectives and little tactics things that you're going to need units with certain stats or well, I would say with certain stats, with more reliable stats to do. It's not that an Ogrin can it's not that it can't ever pass an intelligence test, because it could roll a double one, but it's very unlikely. But that's an amazing moment of storytelling, which is why I'm very excited about the Horus Heresy. I go over to an objective, and in order to grab the objective or steal the objective or whatever it might be, or maybe open a door, I need to roll a double one on an Ogrin, because it's a double one, right? Which you could pass, because then that would equal the stat, because it's equal or below. So in that moment of storytelling, you know, you're in the dying turns of a game, you roll it, and then you're like, yes, he's a genius. He opens the door and he wins you the game. And that's a really funny moment. Yeah, sure, the Primarch's always going to do it. But if the Ogrin occasionally does it, that's an amazing moment of storytelling. Even if it's not for the winning bit of the game, even if it's just a funny thing that happens, the expansiveness of the rules allows more on the tabletop storytelling, which the dice produce. It's kind of my ongoing thesis with how gaming is inherently emergently narrative, because you play a game and the narrative emerges from it. I think a lot of people, when they talk about narrative wargaming, they talk about intentional storytelling. But for me, I really enjoy wargaming because of the emergent narrative that's produced in dice rolls, in what my opponents do, and the dice. Yeah, the dice rolls is really important. And because we bring the themes with us, right? We bring this tinderbox of storytelling to a game, and then we mash them up against each other. This is also, by the way, mechanically really effective when you're talking about, like, I guess I want to, when I say competitive, I mean from being able to like play a game where there's a determined winner, which is how most people play war games, FYI. Most people play a game and they mash their models together and they're like, someone won, and that's fine. And it doesn't really matter if you win or lose, but in some cases that's what happens. And having more expansive rule sets actually does mean that you can be, you could maybe build more fringe style lists. Like, for example, if we take the tech rules, if, you know, pinning your opponent is a really viable tactic, then bringing a horde of tech thralls that are very unlikely to be pinned to just go camp objectives or whatever is a very effective like play style, and might be very different again, because tech thralls like at least I know you can. We're going to talk about allies in a bit, but you can play with allies. But tech thralls being Mechanicum based, a lot of Marines, fire and bolters, just these undead zombies walking forward. So there's a lot here actually, which I'm really excited. Games Workshop is a bit of a classic. They have great ideas and they never follow through. This is pretty common across most of their game systems. But I do hope we see this in the Horus Heresy. Hope it works. Let me know what you think of this video and what stats you think I would have. Intelligence 3, but cool 14. Anyway, thanks for watching the show. See you soon. Bye.